Some towns feel frozen in time. Places where nothing ever truly changes, where people leave their doors unlocked and wave at passing cars because they recognize every driver. Alder Ridge was one of those towns. The kind of place where the biggest arguments happened at town council meetings and the biggest news stories involved lost pets or weather warnings. Crime belonged to other cities. Other places. Other lives. Until the morning the bookstore didn't open. At first, no one thought much of it. Harold Finch had owned the bookstore for over 30 years, and he had never once opened late. That was exactly why the closed sign hanging in the window at 7:30 a.m. felt wrong. By 8 o'clock, the bakery owner next door knocked on the glass. By 8:15, someone called the police. By 8:30, the illusion of safety that had wrapped itself around Alder Ridge for decades was gone forever. Harold Finch was found behind the counter of his store, the same place he had stood thousands of times recommending books to strangers who became regulars and regulars who became friends. Nothing in the store looked disturbed. No broken shelves. No shattered windows. No signs of forced entry. The scene looked peaceful, almost staged, as if the world had simply stopped and left him behind, which meant one thing. Whoever had been there that night had been let inside. Detective Mara Ellison arrived knowing the case would be difficult long before she saw the crime scene. Small towns don't hide secrets well, but they do something worse, they protect them. Every witness becomes emotional. Every suspect becomes personal. And every question feels like an accusation. The security camera outside the bookstore told the first piece of the story. 3 visitors entered the shop after closing hours. At 8:12 p.m., Claire Finch walked through the front door. Harold's daughter. The person who had grown up in the store, who had learned to read sitting on the carpet in the children's section while her father worked late nights. At 8:47 p.m., Daniel Reed arrived carrying a backpack. The quiet employee customers trusted for recommendations and soft conversations. At 9:05 p.m., Victor Hale unlocked the side entrance. The landlord who owned the building and the future of the store itself. After that, no one else entered. 3 visitors. 1 victim. 1 crime. Claire was the first to be questioned. She arrived dressed in black, her grief quiet and controlled. She explained she had visited to discuss finances. The bookstore was struggling. Sales were down. Bills were rising. She wanted Harold to sell the building before the store collapsed completely. She admitted the conversation became heated. Voices were raised. Old disagreements resurfaced. But she insisted she left with nothing resolved except frustration. What she didn't know was that detectives had already found and signed paperwork in Harold's desk that would have transferred ownership of the building to her within days. Daniel's interview felt different. Nervous, restless. His foot tapped constantly against the floor as if silence made him uncomfortable. He claimed he had returned to retrieve a backpack he had forgotten earlier. A quick visit. Less than 10 minutes. He said Harold had been alive when he left. But the backpack he claimed to have taken home was later found still inside the building. Victor Hale spoke like a man attending a business meeting. Calm. Confident. Detached. He admitted he visited to discuss unpaid rent. Harold was months behind. Eviction was becoming unavoidable. Victor insisted the conversation had been civil and short, and that he drove home immediately afterward. But his car's GPS revealed he hadn't returned home until nearly midnight. The bookstore itself felt like a time capsule during the investigation. Shelves full. Chairs tucked neatly. Nothing disturbed. On the counter sat 3 half-empty coffee cups, abandoned mid-conversation. The bakery owner next door remembered hearing raised voices around closing time. She assumed it was a disagreement about money or deliveries. Arguments weren't unusual. Violence was. Then detectives found the ledger. A private notebook hidden beneath the counter, documenting debts and favors Harold had quietly managed for decades. One entry stood out, circled in red. Victor Hale owed Harold £48,000. Claire's phone records showed missed calls from her father she never returned. Daniel's phone showed a call lasting only 2 seconds at 9:28 p.m. Victor's phone showed nothing during the time he claimed he was driving home. The interior camera system had been unplugged at 9:30 p.m. No one admitted doing it. The side entrance lock showed signs of a third key that wasn't supposed to exist. On Harold's computer sat an unsent email addressed to Claire. "I know what you did." Inside Daniel's backpack was a sealed envelope containing job applications for bookstores in another city. He had been planning to leave town quietly. Claire's bank account was nearly empty. Debt collectors had been calling for weeks. Victor had taken out an insurance policy on the building covering unexpected vacancy. Every new discovery felt like another piece of a puzzle that refused to form a clear picture. Each suspect had motive. Each suspect had opportunity. Each suspect had secrets. And then the lab results returned. Sedatives were found in one of the coffee cups. The cup closest to Harold. Somewhere between 9:30 and 10:30 p.m., something happened inside that bookstore. A conversation turned into a confrontation. Fear turned into desperation. And desperation turned into something irreversible. Detective Ellison gathered the 3 suspects in one room. 3 stories. 3 motives. 3 versions of the truth. And a single reality hiding somewhere between them. The truth was simple and complicated at the same time. No one had walked into the bookstore planning to commit a crime that night. But all 3 had walked in carrying secrets. Fear doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a lie repeated enough times to feel real. Sometimes it looks like a single decision made in a moment that cannot be undone. By the end of the investigation, the town of Alder Ridge would learn something it had never wanted to understand. The most dangerous moments aren't planned. They happen when 3 people walk into a room with something to lose. And only one of them walks out unchanged.